Okay, so we are obviously experienced experts here. You can tell by the whiskey selection. We're restoring a Ducati E900 Elefant. There it is. And of course, both of the fork seals were leaking badly, so we had to replace the fork seals. Interestingly, the rebound dampers actually came out, which is not something that always happens with upside-down forks, I now know. I say that like I'm an expert. The Del Boys Garage video that if I put this on YouTube I will link to is really great for showing you how to get to this point. One thing I'll tell you, when you watch him disassemble the forks and pull the upper stanchions off of the lowers, it takes a huge amount more force with these than the ones that he was using in the video. You do still just try to kind of use this guy to slide hammer him off. What I did was chucked the axle carrier in a vise and then just slide hammered with that to get it off. Once you get it off, all the parts come off. These are all the parts laid out in order. So this is the rebound damper that gets screwed into the lower. The spring rests on the rebound damper. This basically spacer assembly with his ring, check that to make sure that it's not goobered up. It's Teflon. That guy sits on that. And then this guy ultimately protrudes from the top of this fork where it is captured and held by this cap and this lock nut and spring collet assembly. Pretty much, according to Del Boy, like every other upside down fork, I don't know. These are the parts in the internals. This, of course, is the lower seal. This is the dust wiper. This is what you see protruding out the bottom of this. Then there is this lock ring that holds everything else inside. This is the actual oil seal. That's the part that was leaking. And he says this, but let me point it out much more clearly. If you take a look at this seal, you can see this side has no chamfer at all. This side does have a chamfer, which means this wants to go into the upper stanchion with the chamfer going in. Kind of helps you to get it seated. Don't put it in the other way because it intends and wants to rest like that to hold your oil in. Just like he said, a little bit of grease on the outside of this guy to let him slide in, but we're not there yet. Once the, and we're actually going from the bottom to the top. So bottom, dust seal, then the wire retainer, then the oil seal, then this big spacer washer, okay? This is the first of the two bushings, and what you want to do is look at that and see if it's cut or nicked. This bushing looks perfectly fine. It's otherwise symmetrical. You can see that I've got a little bit more wear here, which pretty much tells me it was installed this way. I forget, I didn't take a picture when I took it apart. This guy lives in this recess right here in the upper stanchion, and you need to drive it in, and that's what we're about to do. Then this guy lives on this recessed groove in the lower and is the final bushing that holds everything together and is the interference of this guy with all of this stuff and this wire fellow that keeps the fork from coming apart if this screw down here ever comes loose for some reason. On one of mine, the screw was a little bit loose, but by then all the oil had already leaked out onto the fork, so it didn't matter. I have a universal fork seal driver that's adjustable for a bunch of sizes. You can adjust these little guys to fit your diameter. Same tool that Del Boy uses in his video, and you see these guys have an angled cut to them, so they're going to bear on the outside of this fellow. They're not going to bear on that inner surface, which is your actual seal, which you don't want to goober up. And then that goes into the fork, thus, and then it just, I mean, it'll be proud like that. And then you use this weighted piece, basically as a slide hammer around the lower stanchion, and just drive it in. And he says these two distances here are completely universal. That tool will work for every fork. Well, of course, you know, our bikes are the unicorns of the motorcycle world, so that's not going to work for our bike because this bushing seats here. If you take a look at this, this guy can't reach it. So that's bottomed out, okay? And you see where the bushing is here. So this, if I hold it like that, it's bottomed out and it's not even touching the bushing. You see that, right? So we have to have something to make up that distance to apply force to the bushing. Now this guy is beveled so that you don't goober up your seal, but luckily This fellow sits on top of the bushing, so you don't have to be nearly as precise when you're messing with this guy and putting force on him, because he's already going to help you distribute the force all the way around the bushing. All right? So here's the other fork leg. I have my dust wiper on. I have my oil seal on. Those, of course, have to go on before it gets assembled because you can't get them on otherwise. This is my Super Magic assembly tool that Del Boy told us to make. That works great. Do that. And then inside here, I've slipped that bushing in, and there you can see the ring, okay, that spacer ring. And this is my extremely high-tech custom tool that I've made to just give me that extra force. This is a piece of 1.5 ABS, which is a little too small, but it was what I was able to get easily. I heated it for a while to get it malleable, and then I just used the lower stanchion as a mandrel and held it on and just let it cool and dry. It's not perfect. It still wants to spring back a little bit, which is why I've got these hose clamps on. But it'll do what I want because it will fit down in there. Let's see. No, it did a minute ago. Let's just do that again. There we go. It'll fit down in there. You hear that? So now I can take the seal driver tool, drive against this. It'll transfer the force to this and drive this fellow home, and then we're done, and we don't need this magic tool anymore. So what I can do now is just stand the fork up, put this little fellow on, and then do my slide hammer trick. So here we go. Let's just go. Let's take a look and see how we're doing after that. Given that I've done this many times, I'm going to go slow and be careful. Just loosen those. I can slip this back out, and that's okay. But we need to take a look in here and, you know, demonstrate my age. Let's take a look in there. That looks pretty good to me.
Yeah.
You see that bushing? I think that bushing is driven all the way down into his hole. For reference, here's what we look like without it. And the bushing lives in this final grooved recess here. And I'm seeing the bushing below this lip right here. See all that? Bushing lives here. Seal lives here. So I'm going to take one more look, but I'm provisionally going to say I think we're happy. I think that was super easy. Let me just get a light real quick. Yeah, I'm looking at the bushing flush with that upper lip all the way around. So I'm going to call that, as Del Boy says, because he's English, done and dusted. All right, so I've got that. This can come off now because we don't need to drive this. This gets captured between the oil seal and the bushing. Hose clamps come off. And remember, you know, I mean, it takes years of skill and experience to be able to fabricate a part this complicated. My experience is in a variety of very technical engineering fields, including acting, education, and law. Here we go. All right, so get that off, remove the tool. Obviously, be careful not to damage this very expensive tool because you don't want to have to make another one. There you go. And now oil seal is ready to come on down. He's going to slide down. Notice this discoloration up here. Your seal is never going to come this far. You know, this is well beyond full travel of your fork, but we don't want to move the seal up over this. There is a very shallow lip right here where we kind of neck down to a smaller diameter. And even though I can't feel anything here, that discoloration worries me that we might have a little corrosion that might mess with our seal. So we're going to come down here, and we're going to do this. And before I do that, I'm going to grab my lube and lube the outside of the seal, and then we'll put it in. So where did my packet of lube go? Okay. Just going to give this guy just a little wipe of lube, just to help him fit. We don't need to make his life difficult. Okay. So now we can just push him as into place as we can. All right, and we'll put our tool back on. And this guy, this is from Stockton, but it has these little Teflon parts here that hold the metal off, so it's never going to scrape your fork tube. Gotta say, it's a well-made little tool. Simple for what it is, but it's well made. And then we have our driver. I've already sized this. You can unscrew these Phillips and make it a different diameter, but this is the biggest fork it'll fit on, because as you know, these Elefants have giant forks, given what they're made to do. Oh, that's right. Okay, so now this guy is in the groove and he's sitting on the bushing. Nope, the seal, there we go. Give the seal a little press. I can get some press by hand. And then the rest I will just do with this. And it doesn't really take much. And you'll feel when it bottoms out. It'll have a different feel and a different sound. And you don't have to be a gorilla. See the tool going down? Okay, that looks like it's bottomed out. Let's take a look. Remove that. And what you're looking for with this guy, because as you recall, if you're doing this, when you took this wire bail clip out, there was actually a recess or a groove. And if you look, I have now got the seal inboard of the recess. And if you look in this one, it's a little easier to see. We're looking right in here. And this is really where that wire bail is going to sit, right on that lip there, where you can see that tiny groove that tends to capture it and hold it. So that's what we want, is to have that groove exposed, which we do. I'm going to give it another pound or two, and then I'm going to try to put that wire clip in. And if he goes in and he's all happy and he clips into place, then we can consider it done. And then just move on to putting the dust seal in. The dust seal actually goes in by hand. You don't drive that at all. Okay, so that guy's back in place. Just give him a little more love. And I don't think he's moving. Okay. So he's not moving, so we're done. Put that out of the way. Remove that. And then this guy, sometimes you want a small screwdriver. Just depends on how finicky he is, so I'll get one out. This guy gets slipped around the fork. And then we want to just start at one side, like you do with any of these sort of clips, and just work it in. Here, let me rotate it so it's easier to see. So this side goes in, then this side gets compressed and goes in, and that's really it. I mean, you need to press it in place, but it's not hard. It doesn't take a lot of force to get it in by any means. There you go. Yeah, I saw that. My bad. But this guy's not going to come out. Let me just prise on him a little bit here. Yeah, he's happy. He's in his groove. He's done. So this guy gets a little bit of oil. Let's wear a little bit of grease. That's too much. Let's do it by hand. This guy gets pressed in by hand. You just get it started. It is the right size. That's it. We're done. One fork done.